Yeah. It's really hard to know what to trust. And these days, especially next week's episode, I'm going to be talking to an expert on AI, blockchain, Web3 technology. And, with the advent of deep fakes and how good they're going to be getting right now, you still have that kind of uncanny valley where you can tell if something's AI or not. Like there's still a little bit off, but it's going to get very good very soon. It's going to be really hard to tell. And that's going to be another tool that is going to be weaponized against us. I guarantee it.
Well, I would put it to you, TJ, that the technology is actually already there. Just for civilian use, it is lagging, but for DoD purposes and for governmental purposes, that technology has been in place for a number of years already, and so good to the point that you likely would not be able to tell the difference.
That's really scary. That's really scary, man. Yeah. You mentioned just briefly ago, I know we have kind of limited time with you today, sir, but I just wanted to get your opinion on this, because you said before, when we were talking about police and the courts, how the courts, especially Newmarket, would allow. And by the way, I used to live in Aurora, so we were York Regional Police and stuff. So I'm very familiar with Newmarket. You said that basically child predators and sex offenders were kind of let off really easy. I wanted to show you something here. Now, I guess we won't get the audio, but we will get the video. So just give me a second here to share this with you. Sorry, guys, this is very clunky. Appreciate your patience. Here. Okay, let's look at this. So since you can't hear it, I'm just going to turn the volume off so I can hear you. So this is a parade in Spain. Look at this. This is absolutely just, yeah, dude. So I'll stop sharing that. You get the idea. So this was a post from Gays Against Groomers here on X. Man, and now look at that. That's what's happening in Spain. Okay. And by the way, I also saw a video in the same week of Spanish police officers in riot gear with their batons beating the shit out of Spanish farmers that are protesting the anti-farm legislation there. So there's a war on farmers. The police are literally beating them with sticks, but they're letting this happen right in the streets. And that's absolutely disgusting. But it's right here, oh, dude, yeah, listen, I'm going to show you this. We have corrupt federal organizations. We're not just talking about the RCMP here. Check this out. Boom, right here. CSIS admits to monitor. So CSIS, for anyone that doesn't know, is our Canadian Security and Intelligence Service. So that's our version of CIA, basically. Canada likes 4-letter agencies, where the US does 3 letters. CSIS admits to monitoring parental rights activists in comparison to neo-Nazis. I'm going to give this a quick read, brother. Canada's top intelligence agency admitted it is closely monitoring the activities of activists and groups associated with the parents' rights movement, particularly those opposing radical gender ideology. So if we're opposed to what they say is a radical gender ideology, I don't know why they're what the agenda is here. Recent reports from CBC shed light on a document from the Integrated Terrorism Assessment Center responsible for preventing terrorist activities in Canada. The report lumped together the freedom movement with extremist groups like neo-Nazis and QAnon. Anti-alphabet soup narratives remain a common theme in violent rhetoric espoused by white nationalists, neo-Nazis, the freedom movement, and networks such as Diagolon and QAnon, the report leads. By the way, anyone that doesn't know about Diagolon, check out hategate.ca. You'll learn all about it, hategate.ca.
And when you read the Hategate, guys, you'll see my name in there, because I was also surveilled and tagged in that because I interviewed Jeremy. And anyway, we'll get into that in another podcast. That's a long one. So.
Despite the focus on monitoring such rhetoric, there was no mention in the report by CSIS regarding the violence often faced by those protesting against gender ideology. By the way, this is from True North Center. So True North Center is, I would say, a conservative news outlet. I don't know whether to call them independent anymore, but definitely a conservative news outlet. Instances of physical attacks and intimidation against parents' rights protests have been documented, including an incident involving teenage activist Josh Alexander in Calgary. Okay, now I want to just shut this down, and I want to share this because this is just absolutely the pot calling the kettle black. Check this out. This is from 2017. I used to have a friend. Well, I don't used to have. I still have a friend. He used to work for CSIS. He served as a counterintelligence officer in CSIS for 8 years. He worked in the Muslim community because he's a Lebanese background. And his friend that worked for CSIS with him was a gay man. And they filed and by the way, they settled. So I don't know what the settlement offer was, but there's a $35 million lawsuit because of discrimination and bullying and racism, I guess it would have been homophobia in actual CSIS. So CSIS is like, hey, we're going to monitor and closely watch and devote our resources to these parents' rights movements, people that just want to protect the children. Meanwhile, back at CSIS, look what's happening here.
Right.
It's absolutely nuts.
Well, it's beyond nuts. And we need to identify the elephant in the room here. The government has taken away mandatory minimum sentencing for child sex offenders. They have removed the criminal penalty for exposing children to pornographic content. We have 50,000 kids a year go missing in Canada. And that is the highest rate per capita, given that our population is between 40 and 50 million. You look at places like, and Chris Sky actually talked about this, and I give him full props and marks for doing this. He highlights it. Mexico has triple the population and less children go missing. We have a real, and one of the greatest, I'm just going to say this as well, one of the greatest investigators that I ever worked with York Regional Police is the current chief of police in London, Ontario. His name's Ty Trump, and great human trafficking investigator. Worked his butt off. Nobody works harder, and nobody's a more noble cop with integrity than Ty Trump. And he's now the chief of police of London. And I saw the work that he did, and he was busy to the point where he was working like 20-hour days just trying to combat the human trafficking issues in York region, because we have a real and very, very massive child predator issue in Canada. And when your government removes mandatory minimum sentencing and removes the stopgaps to protect children, they're probably involved. If not, then why would they do that? Why would they remove the ability for those that are trying to protect the children? Why would they remove the tools from the tool belt to be able to do that? Like, this isn't conspiracy theory. This isn't tinfoil hat wearing lunacy stuff. This is real. It's quantifiable. Look it up. Or would you rather have your head wedged up your ass and pretend stuff isn't going on until it hits your own front door? Because if we don't get together, if we don't demand better, if we don't get our hands dirty, it's not going to go away. It's going to get worse. And I have stuck my neck out to do this, to say this, and it's come at a cost, a great cost. But I don't care, because it's worth doing, because it's the right thing to do. And if it costs me everything, including my life, and I knew that that was the end result, I'd still do it. Because a society is best judged by the way we treat and protect our most vulnerable. And if you're not willing to get behind that, then you're a class A pansy. And I don't have any respect for you. I don't care if you don't like me. I don't care what names you throw at me, because I'll die protecting my kids or any kid, because they deserve that. That's our duty. That's our responsibility as adults in the room, to stand up against the most disgusting of us and make sure that they're fearful of their lives being lost if they cross that line. Because if you cross that line and I'm there, I'll get tried by 12. I don't care.
I need everybody watching this that thinks that we're full of shit to look at me and to look at Chris and to know that there's a whole host of people beside and behind us, that this is the hill we will die on if we need to. You don't want this. Leave our kids alone. I'll say that. Getting on to Chris, I mentioned to you earlier, dealing with some issues here. So I'll put this interesting, because we just read that True North article that said CSIS, they're not really investing resources in and talking about the effects of the people that are standing up for kids. So back in September, we had the Million March for Children, if you remember. It was kind of all over Canada. And I live about an hour or so away from Grand Prairie in Alberta. And so I went up there just to do photography, which is what I do. It's my trade, to cover the Million March for Children there. And as a result, I've been dealing with some online harassment and stuff there. And then it came to real world harassment. We had a protest after Danielle Smith has released her kind of parents' rights bill. about banning sex change surgeries for kids and such. Them essentially, like, she's basically taken a step to protect children, and she's kicked the hornet's nest. And they've come out, and we had a protest in my small town of Valley View here, where one of the ladies on the other side of things, that was her name's Susan. That is one of the activists on the other side, came to my town and put this poster up all over town. So I don't care if they call me a Fed or a rat, or I'm paid by the government to get information on them, all untrue, but that I stalk and harass. We found these posters. This is an ongoing investigation right now with RCMP. And I'll just say she put them everywhere. Here's the post office board. There's one of the local stores. And there's our local grocery store. But if you look at the top right, what do you see here? It is a security camera. And I won't go to the trouble of playing the security camera footage, but we have the CCTV footage. So they're coming after us. And but one thing I'll say, I was talking with my friend and colleague the other day. We were actually talking about tactical driving. We were talking about the ramming maneuver to get rammed through cars, and how airbags, this does relate, I promise. The airbags are triggered by deceleration, not by impact, but by deceleration. So obviously you have to aim for the vehicle you want to ram through appropriately, like in front of the wheel well, whatnot. But you actually, just before you hit, you slam the brake, and then you jam on the accelerator again. So when you actually make impact, you're accelerating through. It's acceleration that gets you through. And he mentioned that when it comes to flying a plane, there's something called V1 and V2. There's like the different forces here. And once you hit a certain velocity, you can't stop or you're going off the runway. No matter what happens at that point, you got to get that thing airborne. So the answer in all of these things is to accelerate. It's not just to keep doing what you're doing. They're trying to scare you. They're trying to intimidate you. They try to do whatever. The answer isn't keep doing it. The answer is accelerate. Double down, double your efforts, make it happen, and you will win the day.
You will, because I talk to parents all the time. Like I said, doing this for 3.5 years, speaking for freedom, speaking common sense, speaking against corruption, speaking for the common folk. And I have friends that are married to same-sex partners that have their kids pulled from the school systems because of the ideologies being taught at school, and they don't want their children subjected to highly sexualized content. Okay. The Gays Against Groomers crowd actually outnumbers the opposite side within that community. The reality is that most people want your children to be left alone, and they will go to any length to try to cancel you. Don't let cancel culture scare you. There's plenty of people that have been subjected to cancel culture and found themselves in much better financial positions because of people supporting them due to their courage and integrity and strength. So don't let that fear take you over. Stand up, speak up, and stand proud and loud, and stand for common sense, stand for your children. And who cares if I call them libremists, because there's center, then there's right, then there's left, then there's extreme right, there's extreme left. And the extreme left, I categorize as being libremists. They are now the small fringe minority, by the way. They represent the smallest demographic out of the whole group. But they're the loudest. They're the loudest voices coming from the cheapest seats. So like you said, putting your foot on the gas pedal, man, and just powering through it, do it. Don't let them scare you. Are you going to let somebody scare you out of protecting your kids? I know I'm not.
Fuck no. Absolutely not. Like I said, the hill I'll die on.
Yeah, that's it, man.